On average, there are over 118 applicants for every single job. And so if you found that job you're dreaming of, a compelling CV is a must to make sure you get yourself a foot in the door and get an opportunity to tell them how bloody amazing you are. I've been working in IT consulting for over 7 years now, and I've interviewed so many people I've lost count. But through the process of that, I've found 5 very simple tips that help make for a banger CV. And whether it's your first job or whether you're plotting a career change, these tips will apply to everyone. And make sure you stay tuned, guys, to the end of this video, because I'm going to be sharing with you a template that you can download and access that both I and others have used to secure a number of jobs for over the last 10 years. I'm Kieran Panchal, and on this channel, I help you navigate the crazy decade that is your 20s. So if you're trying to figure out life just like me, consider joining me on this journey by subscribing down below. Tip 1 is all about keywords. Now, companies spend so much time and money crafting job descriptions and adverts, making sure that the people that they attract with these adverts are the people that are right, that they have the right skills, and that they also will be the right cultural fit. But I've seen so many CVs where people get obsessed with telling the company about themselves rather than focusing on the actual requirements of the job. Now, a way to get around this that I learned from YouTuber Jeff Su was to actually copy the job description into a word cloud generator, where you can start to get a better understanding for the keywords or key skills that the company is looking for. Now, my suggestion once you have that is to actually think about and use similes when you're writing your CV to make sure you're mirroring the language that the company is using to make that match between who you are and what the company is looking for much, much closer. Another thing to do when you're looking out for keywords is also to think about the tone, not only of the company, but also the job description. Like if you're applying for maybe a social media company, for example, that's a lot more happy-go-lucky and a lot more chill, going in with a very serious CV just isn't going to get you the time of day. And so making sure that you match the tone of your CV with the tone of the job description is super, super important. Tip 2 is probably the most important tip on this one, so make sure you turn the volume up and listen up here, and that is about structure. I've seen so many CVs where it's just blabbing and blabbing and blabbing about experience, about telling me themselves, without making it really easy to follow as a reader. And so the structure I use, which has worked very well, is CAR. That is challenge, action, and result. Very, very simple, but really helps the reader and the audience understand what it is you did. So let's go through them and describe them a little bit more. So challenge. So challenge is the task, the problem that needed solving. What was the issue? Why couldn't something happen, or what needed to start, for example? Then we move on to action. So the action is very much on what you did. Now, many people get wrapped up, particularly for people that work as part of teams, about focusing on what the team was responsible for, or the team did this, or the team did that. The company or recruiter isn't hiring the team, they're hiring you. So make sure that in the action section, you're focusing on the things that you did, the things that you specifically had an influence on, because that really helps the reader understand, okay, I know this person actually did this, and therefore they have the skills to do this. And then finally is R, which is result. So this is, what was the outcome? What was the benefit delivered by the work that you did? Now, many people get lost in this one because they struggle to actually understand the benefit of what they did, because so much of what people do, and we all have to do parts of it, is just because we have to do it, right? But that's not really going to sell yourself to somebody else. So think about what the company maybe wasn't able to do if you didn't do that, or what they were able to do as a result of your activities. And you've heard this advice many times before, but make sure you use statistics. Numbers are a universal language and are understandable by every single person. And so if you use a number, a percentage, something like that, it really helps convey the importance and the gravitas of what you did. And it just helps make your CV stand out so much more than anybody else's. Tip 3 is about knowing your audience. Now, there's likely to be 2 members of staff that review your CV. In some cases, it might be more, but those are likely to be the recruiter and the hiring manager. So the recruiter is someone who works in HR or recruitment. Their job is essentially to quickly review your CV to make sure that you hit some of the key criteria in terms of skills for the role, and that at a very high level, they can understand whether culturally you'll be a right fit for the organization. Whereas the hiring manager or team manager is more likely to be looking at your experience, making sure you can actually do the job, looking at the skills specifically in your experience, understanding where you might fit on a grading system, for example. And they're the ones that are going to be a lot more interested in your experience and previous work, which is why using the CAR method is a great way to help the hiring manager's job make it super easy by structuring what you did and the results of that. So knowing your audience and just remembering who's looking for what can help you structure your CV as well. So for example, the recruiter is going to be looking that you can hit the key skills. So make sure those are really either in bold or really high up on the CV towards the top, and make their life easy. And trust me, they will be so thankful that you've made their life easy that they will literally just pass you through to the next stage because you made things so simple for them. Tip 4 follows on from the previous one, and that is about format. Now I've seen so many CVs, I can't tell you guys, that are over one page. Now, as interesting as you may think you are, and this is maybe a bit of a hard truth, nobody cares about you that much that they are going to read more than one page about you. Remember, the CV is to just get your foot in the door. There will be plenty of opportunities further down the line, be it on a cover letter or be it in various stages of interviews, where you can go into a lot more depth about your experience and you can really sell yourself. But at the point of a CV, you were just trying to give the organization an overview of yourself and that you meet their key criteria. So focus on making sure you get your experience and your CV down to one page. And the template that we'll talk about at the end of this video definitely helps you condense the information, but also hit the key points in hitting that one-page deadline. Tip 5, the final tip, is about selling yourself. Now, most people have a section on hobbies and interests somewhere in their CV, but it's often a thing that they don't put too much effort into, or it's instruction in a really weird part of their CV. But it's a section of the CV that I would encourage you guys to spend a lot more time on. And the reason I say that is because companies, or most of the jobs that you guys are probably going to be applying for, companies are not looking for robots. We literally have automation and actual robots to do that stuff. They're looking for people and they're looking for humans, and understanding your hobbies and interests makes you so much more relatable and so much more of an interesting person. Now, I know as an interviewer, the hobbies and interests are one of the first things that I pick up on, both in an interview and when reading a CV, because I want to make sure that the person that we're going to hire actually has some substance and is a person and is a human, rather than someone who's just a machine. And so I encourage you guys to spend that time on focusing on putting what those hobbies and interests are. And I don't care whether it's just, you're an avid football fan, for example, or that you appear on a podcast, or that you enjoy doing crafts in your spare time, whatever it might be. It just really helps give you substance and makes you someone that the company and that the interviewer and that the hiring manager can really relate to. A bonus tip for you guys before we jump into the template is to not do or adopt a send all approach. Now, companies spend a lot of time and effort on their applications and their job adverts. And so if they can see that you haven't reciprocated that by spending some time on tailoring your CV for that company, why would they spend any time considering you as an applicant? And so sending across a generic CV to 100 companies, honestly, is just never going to work. What you are much better doing is spending your time to research the company, follow some of the tips we've talked about in this video, and make sure you send a really targeted CV to the company that you're applying for, so that they can really see very quickly that you are really interested in working for them and you can specifically meet the needs that they're looking for. Now let's go through the CV template that you guys can download down below that I've been using for over 7 years. That's helped me get a number of jobs. So first up at the top, we were looking at just the personal information. Now, if you're from the UK or US, I would say don't include a picture. Most companies don't ask for it, but I would avoid using a picture. This is just your personal information. The one thing I would do here, though, to make your CV look visually appealing is to actually match this gray box with the colors or the corporate branding of whatever company it is you're applying for. It just helps very quickly show to the company that it just makes it look like one of theirs, and just visually very quickly helps it make it look very appealing. Then we go into your personal profile, which is just very much your elevator pitch, but also here, remembering to focus on what you want to do next and how that aligns to the company that you're applying for. Then we'll talk about work experience and education, and I'll talk about these in tandem. And the reason is because depending on where you are in your career depends on how you structure these sections. So if you're very much at the start of your career where experience, you don't really have too much, but your education is really the bulk of it, then make sure you put your education first. However, I would say if you've been working for merely more than 3 years, to focus on putting your work experience first. That's where you're gonna have learned the most, and someone who's hiring you is gonna spend a lot more time looking. And the other thing I would just say about the work experience is make sure that if you have worked for a company that is very small or just not very well known, to just include a one-liner describing that company, just so the person can gain a bit of context, which will help make your CAR, your challenge, action, and result, a lot more relatable. And also focusing on those 3 bullet points in your work experience, challenge, action, result is sweet. Make sure you do it, guys. And finally is the interests and hobbies. We talked about it in this video, but don't skimp out on this. Make sure you include a description of what you've done and how it's maybe benefited you or just what you've done in that area. And so if you follow these tips, I have been following these tips, and some of the best CVs that I've seen have followed the tips we've talked about in this video. It will really help you get a foot in the door. And remember, that is the purpose of a CV. A CV will help you get a foot in the door. There will then be plenty of opportunities in various interviews, depending on which company you're applying for, where you can go into a lot more detail about your experience, about your interests. And so remember not to just cram everything into a CV like there's going to be no tomorrow. And if you follow these tips, guys, you will 100% get a foot in the door. I know I've used these and I know these apply to any job. So I would love to hear your feedback down in the comments if you use this template and maybe it succeeded for you, or maybe if you have a slightly different template. I'd love to hear that, and I'd love to create a little community in the comments about tips that have worked for you guys to create banger CVs. But obviously after the CV comes the interview and stuff. So if you want me to do an interview on my top skills and tips for interviews, let me know down in the comments below. But I hope you found this video great, and I hope you found it useful, if anything else. And if you take just one tip from it, I'll be happy. But I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already down below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.